Welcome back to STON Talk. Today I'm joined by Kelly, and I've got a question for you before we get into today's topic. Why do you think crypto users care more about results than reasons?
That's easy, because results are exciting. Reasons usually aren't.
Exactly. If somebody posts that something went up 6x, everybody pays attention. If somebody explains why it happened, suddenly half the room disappears.
That's actually true. Nobody clicks on a video called "Let's understand the underlying mechanics."
Nobody. But that's kind of why we're here today, because STON.fi recently shared an update about TON liquidity positions and how the APR dynamics have improved significantly. And while most people immediately focused on the number, I kept looking at what was actually causing it.
Which is probably the more important conversation.
Because the interesting part isn't really the result. The interesting part is how we got there.
And what's funny is that this isn't one of those situations where somebody just changed a setting somewhere. There are actually multiple things happening at once.
Exactly. Part of it comes from changes happening on TON itself. And I think that's where people sometimes get surprised, because they forget how connected everything is.
That's true. A lot of users see a blockchain and an application as two separate things. They think TON is over here and STON.fi is over there, but they're connected. What happens at the network level can eventually affect what users experience inside applications.
You know what this reminds me of? Sports.
Sports?
Stay with me. Everybody celebrates when a team wins. Nobody wants to talk about training sessions, preparation, strategy, recovery, coaching decisions. They just see the result.
Actually, that's a pretty good comparison.
Crypto feels the same way sometimes. Everybody loves the headline, nobody wants to read the footnotes.
And unfortunately, the footnotes are usually where all the interesting stuff is hiding.
Now, one of the things mentioned in the update was faster block production. And before anyone listening starts panicking, we're not turning this into a developer podcast.
Thank goodness. Because we'd lose everybody.
Immediately.
Within seconds.
But what fascinated me was the fact that something that sounds so technical can eventually create a noticeable effect for users.
That's one of the things people underestimate about blockchain ecosystems. A lot of the improvements users benefit from start in places they'll never look. They don't see them happening. They just notice the outcome later.
And honestly, that's probably how technology should work.
Exactly. The best technology often disappears into the background.
You know what's funny? When everything works smoothly, nobody says anything.
Never.
Nobody wakes up and tweets, "Wow, everything functioned perfectly today."
That tweet has never existed.
But let one thing break.
And suddenly, everybody becomes an expert.
Instantly. Everybody has a threat. Everybody has a solution. Everybody knows exactly what went wrong.
Crypto is undefeated when it comes to that.
Now, the second thing mentioned was lower network fees. And honestly, I think that's something everybody understands immediately.
Because nobody has ever complained about paying less.
Exactly. Nobody in human history has looked at a lower fee and thought, you know what, I preferred the higher one.
Never happened.
But jokes aside, lower fees can have a bigger impact than people realize.
Absolutely, because small changes in cost can influence behavior. People become more active, they make more transactions, they interact more frequently, and once enough people start doing that, you begin seeing effects across the ecosystem.
Which brings me to something I've been thinking about. Do you think people sometimes underestimate how much activity matters?
Definitely. People focus on prices because prices are visible. Activity is harder to notice, but activity is often what keeps an ecosystem healthy.
That's a good point, because when people talk about growth, they usually jump straight to market prices.
Exactly. But ecosystems aren't built on prices alone. They're built on users, builders, communities, transactions, products, actual usage.
And that's something STON.fi talks about quite a lot, real usage.
Which makes sense, because at the end of the day, that's what separates a temporary trend from a functioning ecosystem.
Now let's talk about tsTON itself for a second, because I guarantee somebody listening right now has heard the name before, but never actually stopped to think about it.
Laughing. That's probably true.
Crypto people are amazing at pretending they understand things.
The amount of nodding I've seen in crypto conversations should be studied.
Everybody's nodding. Nobody's asking questions.
Nobody wants to be the first person to admit they're confused.
Exactly. But one thing I found interesting about this pool is that it isn't designed like a standard liquidity pool.
Right. And that's part of what makes the conversation unique. Because you're not just looking at one source of potential rewards. There are multiple dynamics working together.
Which again brings us back to today's theme. Things are usually more connected than they first appear.
That's probably the biggest lesson here. The network matters. The products matter. User activity matters. Everything influences everything else.
The more episodes we do, the more I realize crypto is basically one giant chain reaction.
That's actually a great way to describe it.
Somebody improves one thing, that affects another thing, which affects another thing. And eventually, users see a result.
Exactly. And by the time most people notice the result, the process that created it started weeks or months earlier.
That's actually fascinating when you think about it, because it means the headline is usually the last chapter of the story, not the first one.
That's a bar?
Write that down.
Already did.
I knew it. But honestly, that's probably my biggest takeaway from today's conversation. Not the number, not the APR, not even the pool itself. The reminder that every headline has a story behind it. And if you really want to understand an ecosystem, you have to look beyond the headline.
Couldn't agree more.
And I think that's the perfect place to end today's discussion. Kelly, thanks for joining me.
Always a pleasure.
And thank you all for listening. We'll see you in the next episode of STON Talk.